Good afternoon. At this time, I'd like to call our City Council work session to order. Please be advised that Councilmember Barlow and Councilman Bennett are both unable to attend this afternoon's work session and are excused. We do have 3 items on our agenda for work session. We're going to skip over our first one since our redevelopment housing representative is not here, and go to our second item, which is regarding the TC Energy Pipeline and Virginia Reliability Project overview. Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, as you're aware, TC Energy's pipeline replacement project is underway and along with the mobilization of equipment. Today with us is Emily Reynolds with TC Energy to provide an update on the project and answer any questions you may have. Good evening, Emily, or good afternoon, excuse me.
Yeah, good afternoon. Let me get set up here. Make sure we're good here. Perfect. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, members of council. It's great to see all of you again. Emily Reynolds with TC Energy and the State Government Community Relations team. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and provide an update on our Virginia Reliability Project. So first, I thought it would be helpful to briefly share information about our company and our presence in Virginia. So for more than 70 years, TC Energy has operated pipelines, storage facilities, and power generation plants that supply and support the energy needs in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. In Virginia, we have over 1,140 miles of natural gas pipe infrastructure, 12 compressor stations, and over 100 employees, one of those folks being myself. We've been providing energy to the Hampton Roads region since the 1950s and have seen an increase in demand, which brings me to the Virginia Reliability Project and the updates it will provide to enhance natural gas reliability and help meet the current and the future needs of the region. So the Virginia Reliability Project, also known as VRP, involves the replacement of approximately 49 miles of a 12-inch pipe with a 24-inch steel pipeline. The replacement will occur in the cities of Chesapeake and Suffolk, along with Isle of Wight, Southampton, Sussex, and Surrey counties. Also a part of this project is an installation of a hybrid compressor unit at the existing Emporia compressor station, as well as facility upgrades, which would be additional gas coolers at the Petersburg compressor station. So that's the project scope as a whole. I think that this map will be helpful here. It really shows in terms of 2024-2025 scope of work. I'm going to go into detail as it pertains to Suffolk specifically, but I will just say, and I think we have the laser pointer here for those. Oh, maybe not. Anyway, at that top triangle, that is the compressor station in Petersburg. That's the one with the additional gas coolers. The one in the bottom left, the square in Greensville County, that is the Emporia that will be receiving that unit. And then you'll see that completes the triangle, and that has 0.0-8 starting there. So the blue lines are existing pipeline infrastructure. Where it starts at the turquoise color and has black throughout, that's the 49-mile replacement stretch right there. Like mentioned, this is a replacement project in which it is a lift and lay, where the pipe is lifted from the ground and replaced with the new pipe. There are a few reroutes to mitigate disruption, one of which is the Great Dismal Swamp. So again, this is a map showing our existing system where the Plan 24 and 25 work is identified and other details like compressor station and point of deliveries, things of that nature. So moving on to more details, on July 8th of this year, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, also known as FERC, who is our regulatory body and oversees operations from that standpoint, issued a notice to proceed to construction following approval of our project in November of 23. This kicked off our construction mobilization on July 15th, which prompted activity in prepping our staging areas. activities that have sparked many inquiries and some concerns from your constituents. I know I am before the Suffolk City Council here, so again, I want to focus on Suffolk-specific scope of work for 2024 and what to look forward to. Like I mentioned, we mobilized on July 15th, meaning we were prepping the staging area. There is only one staging area in Suffolk, which is located north of the intersection of Lake Prince Drive and Milner's Road. There's been increased truck traffic due to bringing resources in for a project that will have a lifespan from mobilization to an in-service date of about 1.5 years. So that construction team is really trying to ensure that the site's prepped before the actual construction begins. We've been diligent in trying to make sure that we are in compliance with VDOT and our other regulatory agencies on using the roads that have been designated for our use and the legal weight limits associated with each road. The good news, we are about a week out of transitioning from this mobilization phase to a consistent construction phase where you and your constituents will see a significant decrease in that truck traffic. So again, we are looking at about a week. As mentioned, it has been a theme of prepping and mobilizing to sites. So keeping with that theme, beginning the week of August 12th, we began mobilizing. It was between milepost 6.5-7 and the Nansemond River in preparation for the Nansemond River HDD. This is impacting the Hill Point community. During the initial setup phase, we have been clearing trees, laying down timber mats, and installing temporary sound walls to help mitigate with the noise. An HDD is a horizontal directional drill. It is a construction method that allows for trenchless construction by drilling a hole beneath the riverbed and installing a prefabricated segment of pipeline through the hole. The method avoids disturbance to the right-of-way surface between the drill's entry and the exit points, and it's typically used to install pipeline underneath sensitive resources or areas that present challenges to using standard installation methods. The actual drill work is scheduled to take place no earlier than September 1st, with an end date by October 31st. Replacement of the existing pipeline within that community is planned to occur in 2025, in the spring of 2025, so wanted to note that there. So again, just wanted to make sure 2024 work is that HDD prep there, and execution of the HDD. Our team will provide an additional update to this community ahead of that time, similar to notifications that were previously provided as well. Also taking place in 2024 is pipeline replacement construction at the Isle of Wight and Suffolk border on our system near Lake Prince Drive, as well as a pipeline replacement construction at the Chesapeake Suffolk border north of the Great Dismal Swamp. Majority of this 2024 scope of work is expected to be completed by November 1 of this year, with remaining portions of the project planned for 2025. It's a large project, so it's split in half there. To mitigate as much as possible, we have really been working in conjunction with our land team for the project to have outreach to the impacted landowners and the abutters there. The community relations arm has created and started implementing the outreach strategy, where we launched a new construction updates section on our website. We will also be sending regular construction updates to those who subscribe to our mail list or email list, again found on our website. And then finally, it has been our door-to-door canvassing efforts. Also wanted to add in here that within the last few weeks specifically, the land and community relations teams have worked hard to answer all calls and all email inquiries that have come our way. We've really been trying to make ourselves available to ensure folks are getting all of the information. Let's see here. And so wanted to highlight some numbers for you in the canvassing efforts. Again, in the permitting phase of our canvassing, we knocked 3,532 residential doors and 614 businesses. We were able to make contact with 22% of those residents, 70% of the businesses. All were provided a canvassing leave behind that had project-specific information, as well as contact information on there as well. Since July 15th, we have knocked 703 residential doors and have had conversations, some very, very thorough, some have been an hour at folks' house, with 138 of those individuals. So here, just wanted to put this up here on the screen as well. Here's a map showing the overview of the canvassing efforts in Suffolk. And I'll just leave that so you can see that for a minute, and I think that y'all have copies of these as well. As well as here is the Hill Point area, the Hill Point community. Wanted to make sure that we were able to canvass there, as well as the Lake Prince Drive area found here. And I'll just tell you, we initially did not have the Lake Prince Drive area as one of ours to canvass. However, due to the number of inquiries that we received, we really wanted to make sure people had all of the information and we could address all of the concerns and questions that they had. So we actually completed that last week and the week before. And so in closing, we truly want to be good neighbors here and keep the communities in which we are operating apprised of all of this information and what to expect. I know I said this before to folks, and I just want to say it here. We're happy to meet with city staff and really have appreciated the collaboration since announcing this project and continue to work in collaboration with you all. So thank you again for your time today. I hope that this presentation was informative here, and just happy to answer any questions that you may have. If I don't have the answer today, I will make sure I get it for you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Council, questions or comments? Councilman Johnson?
Emily, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your quick attention to this. As soon as it became a little alarming for people, you guys jumped right on it, and we do appreciate that. The question I have, though, and I'm asking this for one of the phone calls I've gotten, Matoka Road and Mockingbird, right there on the corner. It seems to be, it's a very, very narrow road that these trucks can hardly get up and down, and it's been a real problem. So from what you're telling me, it's going to be finished there by October? What do you?
Sure.
How much
so,
longer will the big trucks be in that area?
Sure. So again, the significant amount of truck traffic is going to be increased within the week, right?
Right.
But we still will be having some trucks in and out, taking from the staging areas to our right of way. There will be truck traffic there. And so, like I said, November 1 is when we will be finishing up this year. Yeah.
Okay, that's a fair answer. And I just want to make sure people understand that this is very temporary. Sure. And the roads are very narrow for getting it all through. But thank you. Thank you for coming tonight, and we appreciate it, and
Sure.
People are happy to know that you're on top of it.
Sure. And I encourage folks, please reach out. We're trying to really make ourselves available to relieve some concerns, and I can pass along information and really advocate on behalf of the constituents with our construction team, land team, to make sure that these concerns are raised.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Council, any other comments or questions? Councilman Rector?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Emily, thank you very much for the presentation. I do just have one quick question. You're talking about the drilling under the river.
Sure.
That is going to start. I believe you said the timetable for doing the actual drilling is going to start somewhere around September 3rd, September 1.
September 1st, yes.
And should be finished by the end of October.
Correct.
But that the pipe won't be put in until sometime next year.
Correct.
Does the hole not collapse in that amount of time? I mean, it's...
Fair question, and because I am not a subject matter expert on that, I will get the exact answer to you, because it's good to know. But it is a normal practice, I do know that, and so, but I will get the SME response for you on that one.
Yeah, and that's fine, and I'm sure it's not y'all's first rodeo with
Sure.
this kind of stuff, but it did strike, I mean, the timetable just struck me as a little odd.
Sure,
So.
and I will say, from, again, it's a 49-mile stretch, right, of replacement, and we are going under some rivers and water sources there. So an HDD is going to be used several times. Actually, I believe it's about 15 times throughout the span of this project. Not just in Suffolk, right? We've got Isle of Wight, we've got Chesapeake, Surrey, Sussex. So it will be used. It is a typical practice, but I will get that exact answer for you.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Council, any other comments? If not, I just want to piggyback on what Councilman Johnson said. I know exactly where the staging area is on Milner and Lake Prince. And there's a lot of trucks.
Right.
And the tractor trailers, the flatbeds are, I don't know, they're 40 feet long. I mean, they're very long. I would suggest that we prohibit those trucks on Matoka Road. When they're coming around the corner, when you go to Matoka Road, when you're about 200 yards off of Matoka Road, there's a very sharp curve there with absolutely no visibility. I mean, zero visibility.
Right.
And that road's probably, Robert, correct me, it's probably 16 feet wide. Two pickup trucks, if you're not careful, will bump mirrors.
Sure.
So
Okay.
literally, that tractor trailer and another vehicle cannot pass.
Right.
If, unfortunately, a tractor trailer is coming around that curve, they've got they will block the whole road.
Right.
Because it's just impossible to have a truck of that length to go around there, and the car coming will not be able to see it. I've had probably close to a half a dozen phone calls,
Okay.
and then that means they're going to have to, what I would suggest is if they're coming down that way, that when they leave the staging area, they can either go down Lake Prince or they could come Milner and take Girl Scout Road out to Lake Prince, which virtually has very little traffic on it, no houses or anything, and then that'll take them out to 460. If they're doing Matoka Road, then they're going to end up on Kings Fork Road.
Okay.
Kings Fork Road, we got development everywhere at the end of Kings Fork Road. You got both the schools on the left, and if you take a right, you've got the development in Lake Prince Woods till you get to 460. So it would be my suggestion, and I'll bring out to the manager too, maybe you can talk about it, just shut Matoka Road down. They don't need Matoka Road to get in and out of there. They can do Lake Prince or they can do Girl Scout.
Great. I'll take that back to my
Yeah,
team, and
so-
we'll definitely,
But I'll get with the manager, and maybe we can get with you and
That's
see
great.
what we can do with that.
sure. I'll brief
Okay.
my team so
But
that
other than
we,
that, good
Great.
luck, great project. Can you get gas to my house? I'm not far from there. But,
we've had some inquiries there.
you're pretty much there. But anyhow, thank you very much. I know it would be a welcome addition. Natural gas is a great thing.
Sure. No, thank you all again for your time. And you know where to find me if I can answer any additional questions. Appreciate.
Yes, ma'am. Read about it.
Ricky.
Okay, we are now going to move to a bond rating update. Mr. Manager, please provide an overview.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, as you're aware, on August 8th, the mayor, staff, and the city's financial advisors had conference calls with the bond ratings agencies of Moody and Standard & Poor's. In addition, the city toured the representatives of Fitch around the city on August 2nd to show the economic and infrastructure development within our city. Since that time, the city has received the new bond ratings from the three agencies, and with us today is David Rose and Kyle Laux of Davenport, the city financial advisors, who will review the results for you. Kyle?
Yes, indeed. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council, nice to see you as always, as well as obviously the manager. To the manager's point there, we have very good news, and so we want to be here today and deliver some of that, give you an update in terms of the results of those three rating agency discussions, and make sure you, as council, are up to speed on that. Just to cut straight to the chase, it's all good news here. We'll give you a little nuance and some details, but very excited to present that. So we have a presentation. I'll kind of go page by page. There's a bunch of words here. We won't read word by word, and the actual rating reports that were made public literally just yesterday and today, so this is hot off the presses literally, are at the back of this presentation, so we wanted you to have that, as those are public documents, but really here to give you an overview and a sense of things. So as the manager mentioned, and as you recall from prior discussions, we have three credit ratings, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. All three of those were previously AAA, and cutting straight to the chase, they continue to be AAA. So congratulations, and we'll give you some nuances to that. Clearly, the leadership and management of the overall city with the mayor, with council, as well as the manager shown through, and we'll demonstrate what that said in terms of the rating agency's specific comments. One specific area that we'll talk about a little bit more today in terms of the three agencies, we'll focus a little bit on Fitch. And so Fitch was unique this year in that they recently released a new rating methodology. And so what that means is each of these three rating agencies, they're all independent agencies, every so often at their own cycle, they kind of refresh and update how it is they come up with a credit rating for local government. Moody's did it a couple years ago. S&P does it so often. This year it happened to be Fitch that had literally just gone through this process of updating their methodology, and that was released in April. So it kind of dovetailed with what we've been doing in terms of your capital planning and borrowing. What that resulted in terms of Fitch, going back into the spring and summer, is we as a city, along with all the other cities in Hampton Roads that have a Fitch rating, were placed on what's called a UCO list. Basically, it's a under criteria observation. What it really means is that given this new criteria and scale that they've come up with, they needed to take a closer look at the city, along with the other cities in Hampton Roads that have a credit rating. And so that's part and parcel of what we've done within the last month. The mayor mentioned that, as well as the manager, in terms of a very thorough review with Fitch, given the fact that they had this new methodology. So top of the page here, and again, manager mentioned this, purposely what was done is to give Fitch a tour of the city, which in our opinion, David here to my left as well, was very, very well done. The tours that Suffolk does are really top-notch. We see lots of them. The thoroughness and the professionalism of them shown through and really kind of helped to win the day in terms of making sure that we continue to be AAA with Fitch. So kudos to your team. The mayor is obviously involved with that, along with the treasurer. But that tour and really seeing the development that is ongoing in the city, seeing the level of activity, along with all the numbers that we always talk about in terms of your finances and your fund balance and things like that. But being able to see the activity on the ground is really critical. And Fitch relayed that information to us. So they appreciated it. They got to see boots on the ground, where the development is, the trajectory of the city from the last time they were here, which is about 5-7 years ago, and seeing that continuum of growth and continued momentum really was helpful to them in their credit rating review. We also talked with Moody's and S&P and did thorough reviews with them as well. In the middle of the page there, again, affirmed AAA, that's the highest you can be in terms of credit ratings. And so we're very excited about that, and we think you should be as well. Next couple pages will give you some details. So we'll start with Fitch. And again, we won't read word for word here, but I just want to give you a couple insights. Again, starting with Fitch because they had this new criteria. So top of the page, again, affirmed at AAA stable. And so they've got us at a stable outlook at the highest possible credit rating. I'll point out a couple specific terms in all of this, and all the details are at the back. But they say here the rating incorporates the city's financial resilience assessment of AAA. So from a financial standpoint, as Fitch was looking at all the numbers and their new criteria, the assessment they make of the finances of the city, one component of the rating, is that you are very much AAA, which is no surprise. You've been on a very good run that way. Your fund balances are very strong. Your cash levels are very strong. And so they recognized that and saw that. The second thing they say here is the city's population and economy is of sufficient size and diversification, and it basically gets assessed as strongest relative to their overall assessment. So they see that the population is growing, the assessed values are growing. They give you the strongest assessment for that, so it's a good thing in terms of their overall review. The bottom sort of bullet point here, and one of our challenges, and it's not really specific to Suffolk, it's really specific to Hampton Roads, and it's why this tour was so important, is as they look nationally at AAAs, they see the relative demographics and income levels of Hampton Roads as being lower than some of the bigger cities in terms of AAA rated entities. So you think about your Northern Virginias, your DC areas, places like that. If you just go look at the pure data whether it's median household income, per capita income, all of Hampton Roads tends to be lower than some of those areas. And so that shows through in their, call it pure scoring, is they just kind of put the numbers into their spreadsheet and do that scoring for purposes of the credit rating. And that's really where the tour and being able to see the continued development, the growth in your tax base, the growth in income levels was very, very important to getting to this AAA level because it demonstrated beyond just the pure numbers and the demographics of the area, which we view as very solid and strong, but this is their own independent assessment. So being able to see that level of activity on the ground was really critical. The next page here, a little bit more on Fitch, and then we'll move on. They do give us here, as most of the agencies do, at AAA, there's no place to go. You're at the very highest level, so in terms of things that can lead to an upgrade or a downgrade, they give us those. So while we're not per se worried about them in the short run, we watch these very closely. The first thing they say is a decline in fund balance. You've got very, very strong fund balances. You as a city have done a very good job following your financial policies and even doing more than that. And that continues to be a big strength of the city for purposes of the credit ratings. The second thing they say here, and really the third that we'll tie together, is growth in both our liabilities in terms of the debt and the overall growth of the economy. On a going forward basis, as we think about next year, as we think about the year after, what we'll be watching closely relative to this Fitch scoring is how that continued growth in the underlying economy factors into their scoring. The bottom of the page, what they've said here is the actual score for purposes of the rating is a 9.87. Anything at 10.0 and above is technically AAA. And so their expectation is, given the level of growth that you've had, and if that continues, that roughly 9.87, 9.9 score will continue to be more positive over the next couple of years and be in that 10.0 range. So we'll continue to watch that very closely. There's some things there within your control, some things that aren't, but certainly you're doing all the things within your control to maintain that AAA rating, and they saw that in terms of the affirmation here. Moving on to the next two, Moody's here on this page. Moody's also affirmed at the AAA level. We'll highlight just a couple things here. We kind of highlighted this in green in the middle of the page. They very much focused on the financial position and how strong that is as a result of prudent management, adherence to fiscal and debt policies, and the rating further reflecting the city's growing tax base in the Hampton Roads region of the state. And so, again, following the policies, the thorough planning that the city does and has done for a number of years were very important to Moody's. We talked with them, obviously, about some of your future development plans and thinking about the comprehensive plan and economic development and how that's going to continue to impact the tax base going forward. Fitch, Moody's, and Standard & Poor's all like and see and understand how forward-looking you've been as a city, how all of that planning related not just to finances, but also to economic development and planning is very, very critical to how they view the city going forward. So in terms of the bottom of the page, credit strength, sizable and diverse economic base, strong reserves and liquidity, and thorough fiscal and debt policies in place and adhered to. So checking all the boxes there, but really a big focus on the economic development in addition to the finances. One more page on Moody's, and I'll highlight just a couple things here. Top of the page, cash is king. And so the city's continued growing reserves and cash levels, and city treasurer obviously being there year over year, and that continuity in terms of the experience there was very, very important. So we want to make sure we point that out in terms of the importance of reserves, the importance of cash, the management of that cash, and the returns that it is producing for the city also being a very nice counterbalance to helping create future surpluses and balance the budget. Lastly, in terms of S&P, also affirmed at the AAA, and they cite a variety of the same things. So again, the growing local economy, the focus on planning, expanding the economy. What they really saw was over the entire city, the residential component, the commercial component, the industrial component, all of those things in terms of the diversity they saw and cited here. And again, bottom of the page there, S&P even cited specifically the ongoing work on that 2045 comprehensive plan. And so last page, in terms of highlights, and certainly happy to answer any questions that you have. But again, just a couple things. The rating agencies pick their terminology very specifically. It ties back to their methodology. And so they talk about substantial ongoing development. They talk about a track record of positive operations, so your annual surpluses are very important to them. They talk about a comprehensive suite of formalized financial policies. So it's not just one financial policy, it's really following all of those, taking into account in your planning, whether it's the budget planning, land development, so forth and so on. And then lastly, they were also, in terms of S&P specifically, very impressed with how well funded the city is in terms of OPEB liabilities. They don't see that very often in terms of being fully funded on that particular liability, and so S&P cited that specifically in their report. And so with that, Mr. Mayor and Manager, I'm happy to answer any questions, but clearly very exciting news and certainly news that we think you should be proud of, as it's clearly a representation of the leadership that you've demonstrated in the city.
Okay. Thank you. Council, questions or comments? Councilman Fawcett?
I'm going to jump into frying pan because everybody else is looking at me, so I'm going to take on a little bit here and get started. Just a couple of questions. First off, it's the fantastic news again that we retain the AAA. It's without a doubt. People don't really realize the value of the AAA that brings to the city. Number one. And you know, I noticed as you were talking, you talked about growth and economic development and so on and so forth, and what they had observed as they were actually doing their tour, and where they placed us, like in a 9.87 in one category versus a 10. And my question is that I'd like to just get, I may throw this in a curve that you might not be able to answer, because I'm driving this bus in a direction, because yes, we're doing the 2045 comprehensive plan, and there's a lot of different things about the plan that people like and some people don't like. Growth is part of it. Economic development is another part of it. The point here is, as we move forward in the next few years, between now and the next time that we go before that rating agency, what do you think are the boundaries that could trigger the rate getting lowered based on the economic growth that has slowed up? And this could happen, of course, because of today's economy. We hope the economy gets better. Mm-hmm. But we'll have to wait and see how that goes in the next 12 months. But I'm concerned about if we go down a path here that we either slow our economic development down or we slow our growth down, and we don't continue to have the finances that are, we have finances, but the amount of funding that comes into that budget or into the operating budget and all the things that we cover in that budget, which I think we had an extraordinary budget this year anyway. I think we had a great budget. Where are we going to end up here? Because these bonding agencies can trigger very quickly to be as probably not as open and friendly to you on the rating as some of the other communities around Hampton Roads have experienced in time. So I'm trying not to point a finger at anything specific other than I worry about the bond rating when it comes to economic development, growth, slow growth, no growth, and all these terms I've been hearing flying around in the last few weeks that begin to trouble me, that if we do that, one, somebody's going to have to pay the bill at the end of the day because the city services and all the services we have are here anyway. They're already in motion. So I'm just wondering if we slipped a little bit, would we be in jeopardy of that bonding agency having a probably less favor of us looking like, okay, you were on a good trajectory here.
Yep.
And you're doing all the right things in the economic world of these experts that come here and look to do these ratings. And they're very tough. They just don't hand out AAAs just because they show up. They
That's
want
right.
to see.
That is right.
They want to see the facts. They want to feel it. They want to touch it. They want to see it. So I'm kind of concerned about that because I don't want this city to slip below that rating in any way, shape, or form, because once we slip through that rating, even one of the three slip, and you go back a little bit, now you begin to, because you're beginning a financial burden. You got a problem going here. Now we got to make that up somehow. And it's going to be much harder to get that trajectory back up again without showing, because here we're going strong, and then all of a sudden we pull back, and all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think, Councilman,
I'm trying to dance around this thing. I hope I'm making sense, but I'm probably not. But I'm trying to be careful where I dance here without pointing a finger at any specific thing.
Yeah, but I think big picture, the way to think about it is economic development is very important to the rating agencies. And so how it factors into each of their various scoring, whether it's Fitch or Moody's or S&P, maybe is a little bit different, but their viewpoint on all of it is economic development and your ability to, in whatever way makes the most sense for your particular local government, to attract businesses and attract commerce and continued commerce to your local government, right or wrong. That is very important to the rating agencies. And so whether it's Fitch or it's Moody's or it's S&P, and in this case, we're focusing on Fitch because they just had this new criteria. In their scoring system, a growing local economy, whether that's measured in assessed values or income levels and demographics, that factors very directly into their specific scoring. And so it's very important to them. If there's a little bit of a slowdown one way or the other, might there be, hard to predict exactly how that works, but the overall concept of economic development is very important to them.
Councilman David Rose, appreciate. When they talk about economic development, what they're really saying is they want to see that the local government has a sustainable ability to meet its obligations over time. And so from economic development, what that really translates into is potentially new revenues that are coming from either growing businesses or outside that are keeping a lid on the pressure of local citizens. And I think that's the way they think of this. So if you think of it that way, we always say that for local governments, ratings are twofold. One is a local government's ability to pay, and its second, its willingness to pay. And when you have intelligent, comprehensive plan that has a growth element that doesn't change the nature of the community, but allows the community to thrive over time, that helps with the ability to pay. Then you, as a body, with all your policies, you demonstrate your willingness to pay. And so we put those two together, and you do very favorably. So again, economic development really is nothing more than a proxy for long-term sustainability of additional revenues that help this community reinvest in itself and do the things you need to do. So I think that's, just want to point that out with.
I think they're using it, and you're saying that economic development, of course, but they're looking at the debt, the amount of the debt versus the ratio of what is coming in to cap that debt.
Yeah,
be able to
so
pay it.
think about the debt that we tend to do here ties to capital projects that are increasing the quality of life. Schools, roads and, things of that nature, utilities, all of those things are further making the community better. If we continue to grow in a certain way, like we've been doing intelligently and strategically, then we have the wherewithal to take on that debt. I think it's important to point out, though, that when I look back working with you first go round some 30 years ago, your debt levels then were higher than they are today. Our ability to pay our debts today are far better than when I first met, the city manager when he was in the utility side. We are in better shape today than we were then.
Yeah, and that's just because of the growth or the economic development engine that's come in here to help with that.
Mhm.
I mean, otherwise, we wouldn't be where we're at today.
Right.
So we've been sitting up here as council people. We haven't had the luxury of having those things at our fingertips to be able to make sure that we're paying that debt in a responsible way. We have a balanced budget, so on and so forth. And I'm just trying to keep a finger on something that I don't want to go too far with it, but it's okay. I'll get it the rest of the way later, but I get the gist of it, but I'm just trying to feel it out because I really worry about that rating agency because I know they're tough, and I know that they're going to look very tough at what we do. And I'm not saying we need to blow the city up and make it a metropolitan facility, but at the same time, they're going to always be looking at, are we moving the needle forward enough to be able, I think, to pay for that debt that we have?
I think you are. I think Kyle and I think you're doing that. And those policies that you have, we monitor them closely, as you know. We typically come and see you multiple times a year as a progress report, if you would. So, you're faring well. To your point, the economy may slow down nationally, what have you, but it's all relative. I think Kyle said it best, and that is they look at you relative to other AAAs throughout the country. And so, again, that's important to recognize. And they know, one last thing I'd say, Councilman Fawcett, they know that there's going to come a time. We've been around, you and I, a long time. There will be some elements of a recessionary environment, hopefully not worse for a period of time. It's just the nature of the economic cycle. The point is, what we see, and Kyle pointed this out, you look at what the dollars the treasurer's got, we're more able to be resilient to a downturn than we've ever been. Okay. That's the kind of stuff that goes back to, Kyle said, that AAA of financial management. That's as rock solid as it's ever been. So I want you, again, you're helping us, you're keeping us on our toes, but I think your staff, and the mayor did this when he talked to the rating agencies, you're really already on your toes in terms of thinking about this stuff, and they saw that. So we're feeling pretty comfortable and confident, but we're not feeling cocky, and I think that's the point.
Well, it's nice to see you again, David, and thank you all for a great report.
Council, any other questions or comments? Councilman Rector?
Thank you. And I believe my question has sort of already been indirectly answered, but for the amount of time that we have had our AAA rating, and it's been a decent number of years now, is our ability to be a AAA rated entity, is it on this kind of trajectory, or are we, we passed really well here 5 years ago, but we've kind of slipped in an area or two here? Or is our trajectory sort of at least no less than level, but perhaps even ticking upwards in terms of our ability to qualify as a AAA-rated entity.
The latter part, meaning anytime a rating agency is going to assign a AAA rating, it is the highest possible credit rating they can give. And so they take that very, very seriously. And I think it was stated earlier, they don't just hand those out. So to even be awarded a AAA, you have to be very, very strong. But it's a very good question. Are you stronger today than you were 5, 7, 10 years ago? Yes, you are. I think David just mentioned that in terms of the size of your tax base, your revenue base, some of your various ratios they look at, they are stronger today than they were even when you originally were awarded those AAAs multiple years ago.
All right. Thank you very much for that.
Council, any other questions or comments? If not, I'll make one last comment. I mean, this is indeed exceptionally good news. I know there was some consternation in regards to Fitch with them having, like I said, a remodel, if you will, of their guidelines for AAA, and we were just a tad under, one of the parameters. I mean, personally, I wasn't excited about it. I think the manager was a little excited about it. We are, make no mistake about it, the city of Suffolk, and to Councilman Rector's point, the city of Suffolk is in the best financial position it has ever been in its history. All the financial policies we have in place, and we've not only adhered to them, but we've improved upon them, especially in our unrestricted reserve. It was 10 and 12 and 15. Now it's capped out at 20, and we've created 2 other reserves, one for capital improvements and then an equalization reserve just in case we come up short. So we are, as far as contingencies are concerned, we are prepared for just about any hardship that comes down the road, kind of a act of God event, but we're also prepared to act upon any opportunity that may arise as far as requiring matching funds or an opportunity for a particular project or purchasing a building. I mean, we have funds readily available where we don't have to amend our budget or scramble around to decide where it's going to come from. And I think one of those examples is recently the TPOF grant that we received for $30.1 million. The hiccup with that when we first went to Richmond is, we had to prove that we could finish the project before we could receive that money. Now, nobody asked us for it, and we could have brought it when we went initially, but that request wasn't something that we would have any difficulty handling. It was just, how were we going to do it? By what means? What options did we have? And of course, working with Davenport, we were able to provide proof unequivocally that we could finance the project, but we couldn't do that without the financial wherewithal. And that TPOF grant had nothing to do with our bond rating, but it's an example of how financial wherewithal allows you more options and the ability to participate and get grants on different levels, because we could do that. I also want to, I want to thank everyone on council, because you've supported these fiscal policies, and we've been very fiscally conservative, over the years, and everybody has had a lot of wants and a lot of needs, and our constituents have wants and needs, but we've always stayed within our means to provide whatever we could, but also being mindful of, our financial position as well. And those meetings were, they really don't talk about it much, but the telephonically held meetings were over an hour and a half each. And then when Fitch came in, I wasn't in on the drive through the city, but the manager and staff, went overboard to impress upon the 2 raters from Fitch to basically show our city off. And the great thing, sometimes when you sell something, you have to embellish on what you're doing, but our city speaks for itself. The economic growth, our demographics, our reserves, our ability to pay, just like you said, an ability to pay, a willingness to pay, and the assets to back it up. So I wasn't really concerned, but this does, and to Councilman Fawcett's point, what the citizens may not realize is this AAA rating over the term of a bond issuance saves us, it's not us, saves our taxpayers millions and millions of dollars in debt service, and those funds could be used for any other initiatives we'd rather have. So once again, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for everyone here. The manager, I'm telling you who's in the meeting, the manager, our Deputy City Manager, Kevin Hughes, Charles Meek, our Finance Director, Treasurer, Ron Williams, and it was presented in such a manner, and it has been for the last, as long as I've been mayor, the presentation that we give to these bond rating agencies that we work with, Davenport at the same time, I keep them. I mean, that's a document that I keep on my desk. And if I ever need to explain to someone, where we are as a city and financially, you can just pull that out, and it lays it all out. A brief synopsis of our capital improvement projects, where the money's going, what we got, how we got it, and where we're looking forward to go. So, good news, and hopefully we'll make it happen again next year. Thank you.
So thank you.
Nope. There. Okay, well, that's going to conclude our work session. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor. Our first presentation, our representative from the Housing Authority is not here with us, but we'll reschedule that presentation for another afternoon.
Okay, with that being said, that concludes our work session. We do have a need for a closed meeting this afternoon. Madam Clerk, will you please read the motion for consideration?
Item 1, pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711A8 and A1, the consultation with legal counsel employed by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the legal advice of such counsel, and the discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for appointment and the assignment, appointment, and performance of specific public officers or appointees of the city, specifically the appointments as shown on the attached list for vacancies or term expirations for the Community Policy and Management Team, the Downtown Advisory Committee, the Early Childhood Development Commission, the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, the Human Services Advisory Board, the Local Board of Building Code Appeals, the Paul D. Camp Community College Board, Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia, the Sister Cities Commission, Southeastern Virginia Alcohol Safety Action Program, Southside Network Authority, Suffolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority, Tidewater Youth Services Commission, and the Western Tidewater Regional Jail Board. Item number 2, pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A5, the discussion of a prospective business or industry, or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community, specifically concerning an EDIP proposal regarding Project Thor.
Councilman Fawcett.
Move to approve, Mayor.
A motion for approval from Councilman Fawcett. Do I have a second? Vice Mayor Ward.
Second.
Second from Vice Mayor Ward. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, council members prepare to vote. Please cast your vote. Madam Clerk, please record the vote.
The motion is approved by a vote of 7-0.
This meeting stands adjourned, and we will reconvene at 6 p.m.